What if Bitcoin is a scam? You've heard that line for years, from heavyweight skeptics on TV, from cautious friends at dinner, maybe from the tiny voice in your head every time the price drops hard. The greatest hits are always the same. It has no intrinsic value. It's a Ponzi. It's killing the planet. It's too volatile to be money. It's for criminals. Here's the twist most people don't expect. There's a kernel of truth inside some of those takes. And that's exactly why we're going to slow down, strip out the hype, and look at what's real and what's not, so you can walk away with a clearer framework than you started with. Here's the plan. I'm going to break down the 5 most common criticisms. For each one, I'll steelman the skeptic's argument first, admit what's actually true, and then give you the counter case, the part that usually gets left out of hot takes. By the end, you'll have a simple way to evaluate future headlines without getting whiplash. Let's start with the one that sounds the most damning. Bitcoin has no intrinsic value. The skeptic's case goes like this. Bitcoin doesn't spit out cash. There's no CEO, no earnings, no factory, no farmland, no rent checks. It's not jewelry like gold. You can't wear it. It's not backed by a government or a warehouse full of stuff. If people stop believing, poof, there's nothing there. That sounds like pure speculation. What's true? Bitcoin isn't a company. There are no cash flows and no central issuer promising dividends or buybacks. If your mental model for value begins and ends with discounted cash flows, Bitcoin won't fit in that box. You also can't melt it into bracelets. But here's what's missing from that analysis. The world contains 2 broad categories of valuable things. One is cash-flowing assets, businesses, bonds, real estate. The other is monetary goods and networks, currencies, gold, and yes, Bitcoin. Monetary goods don't produce cash by themselves. They hold and transmit purchasing power across time and space. Their value flows from properties and network effects, not quarterly earnings. With Bitcoin, the properties are the point. A hard cap of 21 million coins, divisibility down to 1 Satoshi, global portability, verifiability even checked with software neutrality, no gatekeeper needed to hold or transfer, and programmability, because this is money as data that can talk to software. Layer on network effects. The more people, institutions, and services that hold and accept it, the more useful it becomes as a savings technology and settlement asset. And yes, there's a second layer protocol, Lightning, that allows instant low-cost payments while settling back to Bitcoin's base layer. Think of base Bitcoin as a global settlement rail, slow, final, resilient, and Lightning as an express lane for day-to-day transactions. If you only think in cash flows, this all looks weird. If you think in properties plus adoption, it starts to make sense. Now, for the second claim, it's a Ponzi. The skeptic's case is simple. Number goes up because new money keeps coming in. Early buyers get rich when late buyers show up. That's classic Ponzi behavior. What's true? The crypto space has absolutely seen Ponzis and frauds. Schemes with a central operator who promises yields, pays old participants with new deposits, hides the books, and then blows up. If you've been here a minute, you've seen the headlines. It's fair to be cautious. What's missing is a definition. A Ponzi has 3 defining traits. A centralized operator who controls the funds, a promise of fixed or quasi-fixed returns, and payouts to early participants that come from new deposits, not legitimate activity. Bitcoin is none of those. There's no central operator. It's an open protocol with thousands of independent nodes and miners enforcing rules anyone can audit. There are no promised returns. The price floats freely and can go up or down. New coins are minted as block rewards on a known schedule that happens roughly every 4 years. Miners earn them by doing proof of work and adding valid blocks, not by recruiting new suckers. And there's real utility beyond price. Self-custody, censorship-resistant settlement, global transfer without banking hours, and a base layer other services can build on. Do people speculate? Of course. Humans also speculate on houses, stocks, concert tickets, and baseball cards. Speculative markets don't make something a Ponzi. The right category here is a commodity-like monetary network with a fixed supply and a variable market price. High risk, yes. Centralized scam with guaranteed returns. No. Third, criticism. It's bad for the environment. The skeptic's case says Bitcoin's proof of work uses a lot of electricity, and some of that power comes from fossil fuels. People compare it to entire countries and say, for what? So numbers on a screen can go up. What's true? Proof of work is energy intensive. That's by design. You don't get a neutral, global, permissionless settlement layer without real-world cost securing it. Some mining operations do tap fossil grids. The energy use is large enough to deserve serious scrutiny. Full stop. But here's the fair question. Not does it use energy, but is the value of the system worth the energy it uses? And can that energy get cleaner and smarter over time? 3 under-discussed points change the conversation. First, energy mix and location flexibility. Miners chase the cheapest power on Earth, which often means stranded, curtailed, or off-peak energy that would otherwise be wasted. Rainy season hydro, windy nights. Even methane flares that miners can convert to electricity instead of venting or burning inefficiently. Second, grid benefits. Because miners can switch off quickly, they act as demand response, dropping load in minutes during heat waves or cold snaps, which stabilizes grids and supports more intermittent renewables. Flexible load has real value to grid operators. Third, trajectory. Hardware efficiency improves over time, and several analyses suggest the renewable share of mining has trended up. The exact percentages vary by methodology, so you should always check dates and definitions. But the direction matters. Then zoom out. The social value of a neutral, open monetary network, especially for people who live under capital controls, unstable banking, or high inflation, isn't trivial. You're weighing costs that are visible, megawatts, against benefits that are often invisible, financial access, property rights in hostile regimes, neutral settlement across borders. Reasonable people can debate that trade-off. Just don't pretend it's a one-sided equation. Fourth up, it's too volatile to be money. The skeptic's case is straightforward. If the price can whip 10% in a week, it can't be a reliable unit of account. And if it's this jumpy, it's not a great store value either. People can't plan around that. What's true? Volatility is real. Bitcoin's market is global, reflexive, and still maturing. The cycles are intense. The day-to-day swings can make anyone queasy. As a medium of exchange for pricing coffee, that volatility is inconvenient. As a unit of account, most of the world still thinks in local currency. What's missing is the time horizon and the use case segmentation. Adoption curves are noisy. New monetary assets are volatile until they aren't. As market depth grows, custody options improve, and institutional participation expands, volatility tends to compress over multi-year windows. Not disappear, but decline. And most people who hold Bitcoin today don't try to price their lunch in sats. They use it primarily as a long-term savings technology. At the point of sale, lightning and hedging tools can reduce perceived volatility for merchants and customers. Finally, volatility cuts both ways, risk and opportunity. People who use rules-based accumulation, like dollar-cost averaging with an emergency fund, survive the chop better than those who try to time every swing. The goal isn't to predict the next candle. It's to own more units of a fixed supply asset over long horizons, if you believe adoption persists. Fifth and final claim. It's for criminals. The skeptic says Bitcoin is pseudo-anonymous. We've all heard about marketplaces and headline arrests. If bad actors use it, doesn't that taint the whole thing? What's true? Crime exists wherever there's money and human incentives. Cash, banks, cards, crypto, you name it. Some early stories were loud and messy. Bad actors try to hide behind the novelty of a new system. Regulators and law enforcement had to catch up. What's missing is how the technology actually works. Bitcoin's ledger is public and permanent. Every transaction leaves a digital footprint. Over the years, forensic tools and chain analysis have made it easier, not harder, to track flows, link clusters of addresses, and de-anonymize activity when it touches the broader financial system. That's why so many high-profile busts in the space were possible in the first place. The money trail is on-chain. Meanwhile, the legal market has matured. KYC and AML at major exchanges, compliance teams, audits, and information-sharing frameworks. Is it perfect? No. But the claim that Bitcoin is uniquely criminal ignores reality. Illicit use is a slice of a much larger pie of legitimate activity, and the transparent ledger is often a liability for criminals compared to physical cash. So where do we land after all that? When you Steelman each critique, a few uncomfortable truths remain. There are no cash flows. You're evaluating a monetary network, not a business. The industry has seen Ponzi's and frauds, so skepticism is healthy. Proof of work consumes significant energy by design. Volatility is a feature of an emerging global asset, and criminals will try to use any money that works. And yet, after you account for all that, the core properties that make Bitcoin interesting still stand. Scarcity, verifiability, neutrality, global access, self-custody, and an open base layer anyone can audit and build on. You don't have to worship those properties to acknowledge they're new in combination. You just have to ask a grown-up question. Do these properties deliver enough social and financial value to justify the costs and the learning curve? For millions of people, especially those outside the world's most stable banking systems, the answer has already been yes. For others, it's a maybe worth exploring carefully. Here's how I keep my own thinking sane in a noisy world. I treat Bitcoin as a long-term savings technology, not a lottery ticket. I separate my behavior, rules I can control, from price, noise I can't. I give critiques a fair hearing. Admit what's true, reject what's lazy. And I remember that an open, permissionless base layer has value precisely because no one has to ask a gatekeeper for access. Now I want to hear from you. Which criticism do you think is the strongest, and why? Be specific. If there's a point I didn't Steelman hard enough, tell me. If there's a counterpoint I missed, put it on the table. And if this helped you cut through the noise, even a little, do 3 quick things that actually move the needle. Subscribe to Bitcoin Manifesto like this video, and share it with one colleague who still thinks a debate starts and ends at it's a scam. No hype, no blind faith, just clarity. That's the whole point.